Hello, everybody, and welcome to Crushing Comics. This is not a This Week in X. It is not a book club discussion. It is just the four of us discussing our lives and comic books. So I'm so happy after about a month of not seeing my fantastic friends from around the world to see these wonderful faces of Tyler, Harry, and Fariha. And before we get into anything about comic-y stuff, how's your summer vacation or not vacation going so far? Because that has been what has kept us apart schedule-wise. I think every week we were down to two or sometimes one person, me included in that rotation out. So there was no show to shoot for the past couple of weeks. But Tyler, what is one thing that you have been up to lately?
I've just been working on my homebrew campaign. That's all.
I was like, wait, we're brewing wine? But no, you mean dragons.
Yeah. I mean, we've finally got a core group of people who are regulars. Who can carve up a little bit of time every week or every 2 weeks and get together. So as the DM, I would like to get ahead of the game. And I'm not using any published campaign 100%. So I will pick certain things here and there, and then I will homebrew them into my own world. And it has been fun. So yeah.
I find sometimes that I have all the campaign books. They're like right here. And they're cool for ideas, but I find the campaigns actually really weird to execute. They seem to be written for players who are very prescriptive, who like go into a room and they're like, I will check for traps. I will open the chest. And I know that as a DM, you become a storyteller and kind of like mold that, but I would kind of just I'd rather storytell my own story. Mm-hmm. So I do what you do. I kind of open the book and I borrow like the one cool thing, and then I go off and I just do my own.
Yeah. Oh, I have something planned. Like maybe 3 adventures ahead. And I have this idea that I want to do, and then I was flipping through some of the adventures. And I was like, oh, okay, this actually works very well in that situation. So I'll just lift some of the cool parts and then put it in there, and then it kind of becomes a mismatch of things. And and I liked it that way because part of what I think of myself is that I am a science person, so I'm not a very creative person, and this process actually allows me to do a lot more creative stuff. So it kind of helps me branch out in a way that I don't think I'm capable of. So that was the thing that kind of kept me busy and kind of sane over the past couple of weeks. Yeah.
Well, I think all of us and readers and watchers and listeners all know that you're actually pretty darn creative, but it's nice that you're getting that affirmation for yourself. Let me ask you, and before we move on to Harry, in my campaign, we have a lot of meta discussion about, are we worried about death? Like I know from friends who play D&D online, some people like they just kill characters willy-nilly and you've got to re-roll another one. And in some campaigns, it's like sacred. It's like, this is part of the storytelling. You wouldn't just kill somebody. There's always an out. They always wake up somewhere else later. Yeah. Are your players worried that you're going to kill them?
Well, we are still starting at level 1 and 2.
Oh, okay.
So, I did not have that discussion with them. But what I'm thinking is this: at low levels, killing them is kind of like, why?
It's counterproductive. So it's like you're level 1. So weak. There's no fun in killing a level 1 character.
Which is why I was like, okay, so which is why I'm stacking the deck against in their favor. So I'm giving them certain things. Like for example, I'm giving them a free feat, so they can do something special.
Yeah.
And and then I'm a little bit freer with magical items at this time and with healing potions. But my intention is that once you get to the 7th, 8th level, which is when it starts to get, I think, a little bit exciting.
Yeah,
you're strong, but not super powerful. And that is where I think if the players are not smart, or they intentionally put themselves in a difficult situation, and this encounter was not meant to be a fight. It's something for them to sneak past or something for them to talk their way out. And they decided that the first thing they do is to throw a fireball at them. They're going to die. And that's not my problem. Yeah. Because it's like, look,
has to die.
You are 3 characters at 7 level. and I throw an ancient dragon at you, you're never going to win that fight. And your first act is to throw a fireball, and that's like, I'm like, okay, fine, let's do that.
You are not a god that tolerates stupidity. I can see this.
No, I mean, yeah, because I want them to feel that I want them to feel that if they have to be responsible for the action, and the death has to be meaningful. So killing them at first level is not meaningful because it's like, they are weak. But as they progress, and as I hope, as they get more ownership of the character, the death, if it happens, because it could happen, because they could roll the dice really badly, and I could have a very good night with my dice, and if that happens and that dies, then that builds into the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's chat with Harry. Harry, what have you done so far with your summer vacation?
Well, I haven't stopped, I can tell you that, but that's not really new for anyone that knows me. But yeah, I have been busy in a fun way. I've been all starting new enterprises and working and getting new camera equipment, which has been a blast. I did take a vacation to Peter's hometown, I believe, of beautiful Philadelphia before it went underwater so recently. But yeah, I had a great time checking out the city, enjoying what it's like to see buildings that are more than a few stories, seeing subways and all kinds of fun stuff like that. I really enjoyed it. I checked out Atomic Comics, which had a bunch of great trades, and we actually did the math, my girlfriend and I. By the end of the trip, we had walked around 40 miles, which was a lot. So we're definitely, we enjoyed that for sure. And I hope I can visit again at some point. I won't lie though, I only came back a couple days ago, and I am still a little tired from it. It definitely took me out, but I'm here and I'm ready. I'm here and I'm ready to go.
Well, Philly is
New York City is a really walkable city. So if you want to walk a lot, come here.
Well, we noticed everybody. Okay, the top half could be any size, shape, color, whatever, but everyone's legs were incredibly toned and fit. Like everybody, we were marveling. Like everyone on the street had super fit legs. Like it's from all the walking. It was kind of shocking, to be honest, but it was cool.
So one thing I'm noticing though, Harry, what happened to Morrison Batman books? They used to be behind you.
They're gone.
And they're no longer there.
They're gone. And I saw you put yours on sale today too also. Well, I can actually talk about that. I also got a bonus at work, and I decided to treat myself, and I got a brand new iPad Air. And it's pretty great, and it's been really fantastic. I've been reading so many comics. So yes, while I love my omnibuses, I can read them on here. And I needed the money for other important reasons. This
episode of Passing Comics was brought to you by Apple Live.
Yeah.
Brought to you by Apple.
Well, no, I just think it's funny because we all started out as dedicated physical readers, and then over the course of knowing each other and over the course of all these shows, we've been being like, digital really ain't that bad. There's a pretty big convenience factor. But don't worry, people who've been listening to Morrison Batman. We have actually a ton of episodes in the can that you haven't even heard yet. So that does not mean that Harry has
talk about that and
given up.
I'm very excited.
Yeah, but Harry, speaking of Dungeon Mastering, I gave Harry this ultimately pretty extensive guide to Philadelphia, including how to navigate the map and all the things he had to eat.
Yes.
So, and Philadelphia is really walkable. People don't realize the actual middle of the city. It's only 30 blocks wide and 20 blocks tall. You can just walk around and around and around in a single day if you've got those strong lower, calf muscles like most Philadelphians do. But let me just go down the checklist of Philly things. Did you experience them? Did you have a cheesesteak?
Of course, I went to Jim's and Pat's, which was great because I went to Gino's my first time a year ago. So we knocked off the 3. Jim's was better.
Jim's was the best one, right?
It was.
Yeah.
It wasn't even really close. We were just somehow that was awesome. Yeah. So that was one thing we did.
Okay. And I love Jim's because it's so weird and little, and the wall has all of that metal plated stuff. It's just every time I always in my head think of it as something bigger because it's Jim's, and then I walk in and you're like this.
I was smushed again because I'm kind of whitish, so I'm just like, hey guys, how are we all doing? But yeah.
Okay, so did you see anything about the birthplace of America?
Yes, we went to the Liberty Bell, which is really great. We didn't make it to Independence Hall, but
you
we
saw it. Like it's
of course. We walked all around that area. We walked so much. We were averaging like 10 to 12 miles a day at some point. So yeah.
And I guess what's the third thing? Did you witness anybody being unspeakably rude?
One guy got really pissed at us for going to a thrift shop like 10 minutes before it closed. And I was just like, it's cold. I want a flannel. And he was just like, man, we are about to close. I can tell you the best part of the quote that we are still thinking about like days later is, and I don't think this speaks to the city because I had a lovely time.
No, it might.
Like we were leaving and these three cops were talking to each other and two were like, did you see that guy? And they break off leaving. So we're talking to the third cop like, wow, we're seeing a lot of like barriers and guard cases on all that. And the cop's just like, yeah, well, we've seen a big uptick in violence lately. And my girlfriend's like, oh, is it because of like COVID restrictions? He's like, no, it's violent because it's Philadelphia. And he said it so cool, so smooth. We were just like, damn, what a line. And we're still thinking about it. But yeah, most people were pretty nice as far as I could see. But I didn't talk to that many. So maybe that was my issue.
But I want that on a t-shirt real bad.
It's violent because it's Philadelphia. Yeah, it was awesome.
So hold on. You guys talk to cops like as a friendly way?
It was like 11 o'clock at night. And yeah, we were just like, what? I want to know what the two cops are chasing after that guy for. So I asked. It's in my nature. I'm a snoop. But well,
yeah, you would live Harry journalism. Sometimes when you have journalism brain kicks in. Like I have found myself not necessarily like talking to cops, but in situations where I have no business saying anything or being involved at all. But I'm like, so how do you feel about that? Because I can't turn off journalist brain sometimes.
If you just turn off like that little lever, like that little guard rail of like, oh, it's not my place to ask this. No one will ever push back on you once you go past that. You're fine. You can ask whatever you want. And people will often tell you. And that's a cheat code to life. But yeah, it's violent because it's Philadelphia, which is a hell of a line.
I love it.
Yeah, I wanted to say something about it, but I'll say that offline. Maybe too political. But, maybe too political. But we'll talk another time about that.
Right. Yeah, that's our Patreon.
Now,
that's our Patreon.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've been talking to Harry a lot because I was helping him with Philly, but I truly feel like Fariha could have taken a trip off the planet. And I really don't know what you've been doing for the last 4 weeks. So what have you been up to, Fariha?
So there's been some uptick in terms of for work travel. So I decided to take my cat, Lady Darkholme, to my parents' house and leave her there until I'm kind of done with this work situation. So I went to Canada, and the idea was that I'll leave her there and then I'll come back and do my work trip. However, once I went there, I realized you need a COVID test to get back into the country or get back on a flight.
Oh, for flights. Yeah, the border they don't care, but airplanes do. Yeah. Right.
So, and then you can't get a COVID test unless you've been in the country for 14 days. Like it's a very stupid and weird rule. And then I found out when I went to the airport that US doesn't need that PCR, the high level test. That's what you need to do the 14 days. They just need the antigen one. And the antigen one, you can walk into any pharmacy and get it.
Oh, Walgreens, the Binax.
Well, there's no Walgreens in Canada.
In Canada.
So,
right, sorry.
So yeah.
You
so
know
it
your
was just
Canada brands, Harry.
Yeah, know your Canada brand. It's Shoppers Drug Mart for you weirdos. So even though it looks exactly like CVS, it's like the same red and everything. But anyway, so I left her there, and I came back to Philly, and I'll actually be on the road again to Chicago. But it's been very difficult without her, without my cat, because I got very, very used to having her. But at the same time, it's very hilarious to get all the updates from my parents. They
feel like they've got like a grandkid to look after right now, right? They're like they have a cat to play with. It's your cat.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they also I had to kind of remind them, like, it's a cat, not a human. It's different. Like, you're not gonna hurt her feelings, and then there was also this time, because when I was there, my dad usually wakes up very early. Like he would report to my mom on what the things the cat was up to. And then my mom will report to him later in the afternoon what the things the cat did that he missed. So it's a very wholesome affair.
Oh,
And, they
so
seem to be
cute.
having
That's
fun.
adorable.
So I told my mom, I'm like, oh, that's that's really great. So is she becoming that one, the Lost on Road cat? That's where our house is. And mom was absolutely not. She's a guest. You told her you're going to come and pick her up in November. You're going to do that, damn it. And I'm like, okay, here I thought you guys were having fun. So yeah, I also read a lot of books, so that was good. Except for X-Men,
Same.
I didn't read any X-Men. So, so that was like what I've been up to. What about you, Peter? What have you been up to?
Before I get started, I want to ask you, it's kind of unique to be doing a lot of travel right now, and you're doing it for business, not pleasure. So you've been on quite a few plane rides. What is the kind of like most unusual situation, whether it's like funny or surprising or uncomfortable, that you've encountered in airports and airplanes and on all this travel?
Well, people are all following rules when they're inside the airport. So I would say that that's a good thing. Like I was kind of surprised to see that though. Everybody's masked up. Everybody's, and people you can see, I'm like, these people are anti-masker and they're wearing masks. So, you can tell from their look and their attitude, like, there's a certain tough attitude about them. And then, there's like, so people actually following rules. So I didn't feel any kind of weirdness, but while I was sitting in the airplane, I, for the life of me, do not understand why airplanes don't fill up from back to front. Like why that is not a thing anymore.
Oh no,
go ahead, Tyler. No, they don't.
No, they've done all this data that like supposedly you kind of do it in like a V shape, but it doesn't actually seem to do. Maybe back to front would be worse, but it seems like it doesn't make any sense.
No. Wait, hold on. Which airline are you flying?
All of them. I flew all of them.
Oh, okay. No, the reason I noticed that, I have not been flying at all for the past 2 years, but
Tyler hasn't actually left that room. He's been in that one room.
And I think the one of the reason I noticed
doing his D&D and OnlyFans.
Get it, man.
Anyway, what I was talking is I fly United because I have the United points, so I always stick with United. And I noticed that a lot of people have the United card now, which allows them to basically has the priority line. So the priority line is actually the longest right now because a lot of them have the card, which means that everyone just basically has priority and there is no sequence anymore.
I got some airport stories if anyone wants to hear them.
Coming to Philly or leaving Philly?
Both. Boys.
Before we move to Harry's stories, which are going to be weird because it's probably from Florida. But here's what I don't understand is like, why is everyone so interested into getting into the plane? Because everybody's just standing there, which is so awkward.
I have a reason.
Only when I have carry-ons to stow.
Yes.
If I have my travel guitar, I'm like, okay, actually, I usually wait if I have my travel guitar because it's slim. And I'm like, I just want to put it on top of other people's stuff. So I will get on last. And people are like, you could get on. I'm like, that's fine. Just go ahead.
Yeah, just go right ahead. So probably that, maybe, but still, because a lot of people don't necessarily have a lot of bags and they're still, anyway, that's fine. But I just don't understand this whole process of that. And what really drives me insane is like, as soon as I play, everybody's just standing up and in the aisle.
I cannot.
We will all get off at
like, especially when the person next to you stands up and you're in the middle or on the edge and you're like, I'm not standing up yet. Okay, just fucking cool it.
Yeah, no, I'm just sitting there with my butt like glued to my seat. What are you gonna do about it? But the fact that it's like COVID and everything, this is what it's like. I'm noticing all of these things. I'm like, oh my God, we humans are disgusting, and these are some of the disgusting things we do.
Well, speaking of disgusting humans, let's throw it back to Harry because
all right.
I'm sure he's got it.
It's not,
all right.
Wait, the sage way seems to suggest that the disgusting human is Harry.
We don't know what the focus of his story is going to be yet. Don't jump ahead.
Well, it's about one quick one. It's about a baby. I don't know if this will get across as well on Zoom, but like we're just waiting for our flight and like This lady walks in like her 5-month-old baby. It's a very small baby. All right. This baby, very cute, is walking, looks at me, he looks me dead in the eyes and just goes like disgusted face and walks away. And I was just going, girl, like, did you see that? And she's like, that baby hates you, man. I know.
Wait, the baby's 5 months? And
no, it cannot be
walking?
5 months.
I don't know. It was definitely
months.
It was small enough that like it was in like a carrier, but she was holding it on her arm. Like the baby could make facial expressions. It could do nothing else. It was a baby.
No, but hold on. But the thing is, the baby walked away, you said.
No. She's holding him as she's walking away.
He climbed down and got on the floor.
All right, no. All right, so the flight back, which was
Florida babies are made of.
Hey, this is all in Philly, by the way.
Took a drag off of the cigarette.
Yeah, but then they were probably going into Florida. But
our babies vape, man. That's different. But no, we're in Philadelphia. It's the plane's supposed to leave at 8:00. Okay, so we get to the airport, we check in, we're at the terminal, the gate, whatever you want to call it. We're sitting there, and we hear the intercom go, "Hey, the connecting flight to DC. Weather is so bad that flight's just not happening. You got to get reticketed downstairs." Mm-hmm. So we go back downstairs. When we go, it's like 8:30, 8:40 at this point, and we get to the front of the line, and the lady's like, "Hey, the only plane's going to be 5:55 the next morning." So we're feeling a little screwed. So we got to get an airport hotel. All right. So this is where we make our mistake, which is we've already been feeling ballsy, been walking 40 miles, as I said earlier. So like, okay, this airport's 20 minutes away. We'll just walk to it. Screw it. We're already in this zone. So we get started. There is no walkway from the airport.
I'm like, there's no.
There's no.
No. So we realized this halfway through that there is just highway. There's no actual sidewalk. So we're like, part of like the adventurer in us want to keep pushing. The survivalist in me doesn't want to get hit by a car. So we find this like giant, like utterly deserted, like excess overflow parking lot, like that's like covered in like brush and like the grass is breaking through and everything. And this thing is massive. So we're walking for like probably at least 10 minutes down this parking lot till eventually airport security, this guy in a pickup drives up to us and he's like, "Hey, between you and me, jump in the car. We're going to drive you to where you need to go because this isn't safe." So we get in the car with him. It's this cool guy who I won't mention his name so we don't get him in trouble.
But Harry got it because he's a journalist.
Yes, I did. Yeah. And he's telling us this whole, we're like, "Dude, thank you. You saved us." He's like, I know who really saves you. And he tells us this whole like parable. It's close. This whole story metaphor about like a man who was lost and he's walking down the street and he doesn't know where he's going. And this little kid sees him. He's like, "Take my hand. My name is Gabriel. I will show you the way."
I was hoping
and he's this little kid. Kid
yeah,
Lucky.
that's what I was just gonna say.
Anyway, so this has been like
it's been like an
hour long.
I feel like I'm back at home in Philly because these things happen in Philadelphia.
I know, like a 45-minute endeavor at this point. So he's telling us like, yeah, this little boy, he's walking this person to safety. And he gets him to where he needs to be. And the guy turns and looks and the kid's gone. He was an angel. Gabriel was an angel. We're like, okay, cool. Good story. Thank you. So we get our stuff out of the pickup. We go to the hotel and the lady that welcomes us was named Gabriel. And we were just like, we don't know what's going on anymore. Let us go to sleep.
Wow.
I wish any part of that was made up, but that was all very true.
Wow.
And,
I honestly thought when you said that it's gonna overflow, I was like, "Oh, these people are gonna sleep in the parking lot. That's how the story's gonna end."
I've done not in a while, but that's not safe. Anyway, point is, don't always call an Uber. Don't ever walk it. And when you're in dangerous situations like that.
There's shuttle. There's hotel shuttle.
The next morning, we were taking the shuttle to the airport. Like, how did we not realize there was a shuttle?
Those hotels are nowhere close to the airport.
No.
Like, no. They're like, two highway exits away. All the
it really
airport,
depends.
Whatever.
It really depends because if you're from Singapore, the airport is attached to. The hotel is attached to the airport, so you basically just like walk.
Country is attached to the airport. If you're
that's true.
It's a little tiny country.
I know.
Like you can. Harry could probably walk the whole country.
I could do.
Oh yeah,
no, don't. So this is what not to do. Children watching, don't do what I did. I'm alive and safe.
Watch this.
No, I thought Harry would be walking, and then come into, knock on the door of this person who's so Peter, the weird person who's like,
Oh yeah,
weird.
I was gonna merge into my
I was gonna because there's no furniture in the house and it's like lined with plastic.
I'm okay.
I also
okay.
have a ghost story from Philadelphia. Maybe it was Gabriel. I don't know, but that story is very, very funny. All of Harry's stories, of course, cautionary tales. You have to remember
all of
Harry's
them.
stories.
My existence here is against all odds, so just remember that. All right.
Well, so here I keep saying summer vacation, but it's just spring has sprung here. So this was winter that I was missing, but it was like in the middle of the school term. The kids go to school. The school is like I could throw a stone out of my window and hit the school, which I never thought I'd want to like live right next to a primary school because there's at every hour. But it's like really nice to just know she can just walk 3 steps down the street and be at school.
Farewell.
So it was like you were all busy, and then one week I was busy, and I wasn't really into the comics, which is going to lead us into our next topic. I went from a pull list that famously is 40 to 60 books a week to 0. And I've done that before. It's and I try not to make a big deal and like go on like I'm quitting, because I am definitely that kind of person who sometimes is like cut off my nose to spite my face, where it's like I make a bigger deal about the thing that I did than the deal was. And I'm like, well, I quit. But I try not to do that because I know sometimes you just take a break.
Okay.
And it usually has to do with Jonathan Hickman too, most times that I quit comics. And but this time it didn't. It was before all that Substack stuff and Hickman leaving, and we're going to get into that in a second. But I was like, this is actually kind of nice. I'm not going to edit any videos. I don't have a big reading list. The kids at school, I'm just gonna do some stuff. I'm gonna like tidy up the house. I'm gonna like catch up on reading. I'm gonna like, I just had this whole list of stuff to do. And then just as the list was picking up, New Zealand went into lockdown. We had one COVID case where it's been traced to somebody who was in quarantine, who legally came back from Australia and was in quarantine and had detected COVID. And they did genome sequencing to know that it came from that person. But the person who spread it was somebody out in the community. And they have not a firm grasp because that person in the community never interacted with this person in quarantine.
Oh boy.
And so this is just fascinating to me. And from the one person in the community, we, over the course of 2 weeks, went up to 500 cases, and it was Delta. And all of them can be linked back to them. They've all been contact traced. The science is very sophisticated here of all of this. They do wastewater testing. So they would know in a town if there was going to be a case the day before there was a case, because they would have wastewater tested it. And they could even tell what strain it was from genome sequencing of the wastewater testing. Like it's all, but we're all in our house, and house lockdown in New Zealand is no joke. I guess we started the show after it was all over last year, but it's like you can go to the grocery store and the gas station. That's it. Like people who are involved in transport are still out and around, and healthcare workers are out there, but there's no like takeaway food. There's no shopping. Like there's nothing. And you're not expected to leave your neighborhood. You're not, all the beaches are closed. You're not supposed to go on tramps, which is hikes. Yep. And so it's just been, I like it in a way. I mean, I don't like that there's COVID and lockdown, but like, to me, we're very lucky to be in a comfortable house. My partner and I both work from home largely anyway. And it's kind of nice to be in the house and with our kid and doing family stuff for a limited time. But I was not expecting any of that. So it's kind of my life where I had this big list of to-dos and then it changed on the day, And I feel like that's happened to me a few times in the past 5 years of life, whether it was being in my tech job or being a stay-at-home parent and then abruptly moving to New Zealand, or being in New Zealand and being a stay-at-home parent before my first job here. It's kind of like, life's what happens when you make plans. I don't know the quote, right? And so it just really struck me that it's like, you can't really plan that far ahead. And I'm somebody who's a spreadsheet lover and a schedule lover. And I thought that because we were on a break, I was going to have this whole list of stuff done when I got back. And it's like, no, I'm like proctoring school stuff and juggling meetings and doing all the crazy stuff that life is. So it's not a very exciting story, but that is what I have been doing for the past couple of weeks.
It's a wholesome end.
It's good to have a break from doing something so rigorously, like something that's supposed to be hobby, but you were doing it a little bit more involved, and then it's like, no, I'm not going to be doing this. I'm going to focus on family stuff, like you said, limited amount, which is something I realize every time I spend more than 5 days with parents. They're really nice people, but
well, also the cat.
There's only so much cat thing.
Oh, in this period that we've been away, my daughter turned 8, and it's like she's kind of her own person. I mean, kids are always their own people, but it's like she's much less dependent on us to just entertain her and inform her and stuff. She's got her own little universe of stuff, and so you really realize like that's all super fleeting. a lot of times, when I spend time working or reading comics or editing a video, I kind of ask myself, like, are you missing out on some other thing? Like, is there some other thing you're supposed to be doing? So I kind of just spent the whole month doing the other thing. Cooked a lot of dinners, read a lot of books with the kid, that kind of stuff. So, but as I mentioned, some big things happened in the world of comics while we've been away. And one of those things is this announcement of Substack, which is basically a paid newsletter service. It's kind of just Patreon, but not saying that it's like an OnlyFans locked kind of platform, but being like, you're just paying for access to this newsletter, which will have content. It's the same thing as Patreon. Yeah. It is virtually the same thing. They just know that newsletters are a hotter prospect right now. And so there had been some talk that Substack was really going after a comic audience. They saw it as something that nobody had really nailed in that way in terms of subscription as a service comics, even though there's things like webtoons and Comixology and things out there. And so they actually hired, of all people, Nick Spencer to be their main consultant. I don't know if I would want Nick Spencer to consult on anything about comics, but I do believe that Nick Spencer actually really gets this idea of how tech and software as service works. And in my fan fiction, in my headcanon, I'm pretty much sure that Spencer went to them and just was like, well, the two hottest writers in the world of American comics right now are Jonathan Hickman at Marvel and James Tynion at DC. Here's how their rates almost definitely shake out. And if you offer them this much money to do whatever they want, both of them will leave their current gigs. Because if you work out the math of comics, and I have a huge spreadsheet. This is one of the things I spend time on. I decided to just spend a day and figure out all the economics of this Substack deal, and I have it all worked out. Keep in mind, this used to be my full-time job, this kind of thing. You have to think that any comic that gets sold in the direct market, that's a $4 cover price. The comic company itself is only making $2 off of that because and we know that because we all order from places like Direct Comic Book Service where we see that discount. Some of the companies offer a slightly less discount. So maybe Image, they're making 60% of the comic, or Dark Horse makes 65%, but we can roughly say that mostly they're only making 50% even off of the sale. And then of course there's other things too, like getting it printed and getting it distributed that come off of that profit. And so ultimately, the creative team on any given comic book, probably only like $1 of the budget of that comic is going towards the creative team. And there's a lot of resources out there to kind of figure out rates and things. So I kind of just took Tynion, who writes a lot more than Hickman, so it's kind of more interesting to look at his universe. And I roughed out what I was pretty sure his salary was just from comics. And so that's like walking around money to Substack. So Substack basically went to Tynion, offered him to what to them was walking around money that their VCs wouldn't even blink and notice based on their current valuation. And to Tynion, it was a life-changing amount of money that meant he didn't have to renew with DC and that he could pay a living wage to all of his artists. So I'll stop after this. I've been talking for a while because I want to get everybody's thoughts on it. Do you care? Have you subscribed? I'm really interested to know. But basically, Tynion went from like making a modest wage writing Batman, Joker, and then of course he's writing other books that are his. House on the Lake, Department of Truth, Something's Killing the Children, plus it's about to have a spinoff, and Wind, which is brilliant. I highly recommend it. It is a queer youth fantasy book. Definitely read it. This is the special DM only hardcover. It's gorgeous.
Where'd you get them?
I think I got it from DCBS. I think it's the DM only. I highly recommend it. Anyway, he went from doing okay to he's now making like really good money, and he can pay a living wage if he chooses, to his artists, his letterers, his colorists, because he's in control of the money, and there's no diamond to split money with. There's no comic shops that have to profit off of it. There's no Comixology that he has to give a cut. The only thing he has to do is give the percentage off the top that he's giving to Substack. And he's got the startup grant, and he's got the money he's making in every subscription. And it's like, actually, people are going to make money making comics. Wouldn't you want to do that? Like, no matter what your industry is, just the three of you and everybody listening, if somebody just handed you $500,000 and also said you're going to make money every month by doing whatever your output is, whether you're an accountant or a journalist or a chemical engineer, and you can also hire all the people that you think are smart and probably pay them a living wage too, wouldn't you do that? Mm-hmm. But the other side of it, and here's where I'll turn over, is Substack has pretty much said that to everybody. They've said that to voices on every part of the political spectrum. They've said that and put out that same kind of invite, the recruitment, to people who are rampantly transphobic. They've done to people who are rampantly homophobic, rampantly misogynist. They basically are like, anybody who might attract an audience, come on down the road. And a lot of content creators have taken that same invite. So What do you all think about that? Before we get to the ramifications on the X books and on Batman, my favorite comic of 2021, what do you all think about that?
So I want to talk about first what it cost for readers.
Yes.
As a reader, you know.
Yeah.
So there's like 3 tiers. You can, and it's the same across the board for all of them. So you can pay $8 a month, you can pay $80 for a year, or you can pay $250 for a founding member. And I don't know how long someone can be a founding member. Like, is it like, you know, just this first year? Is it going to be just keep on being offered? And that founding member itself even lasts for a year, you know. So it's over after the year.
Well, we're easily spending $250 on all the X-Men comics that we've been reading a year.
Hold on.
Yeah.
It's for per creator.
Right. Just Hickman or just
Hickman.
Yeah.
So if your favorite is Hickman and Tinian and Zdarsky and Spencer and Molly Ostertag
and Lemire just joined and Sophie Campbell.
And yes.
17.
So how much you're paying, you know, how much you end up paying. So that's something to consider. Second thing is, so who do you think I signed up for and what level? Like, obviously I signed up for Hickman at founding member.
You paid the $250?
Yes, because I was talking.
Oh my God.
So I was talking to my mom about it, and my mom is like, "Oh, what?" So I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna sign up for a month and then see." And my mom is like, "No, you like, do you like this? Like, you know, she's like, oh, what is like?" I'm like, "Yeah, writer, blah blah blah." And my mom is like, "Oh, it's okay, I'll pay for it." So my mom paid for it,
and she watches your cat. What a great mom move!
Yeah, so it's because listen, my family's way of showing affection is like, here's some money, we can abuse you how much we want. So emotional like manipulation. So anyway, so I did sign up. Okay, so and it's been a month. Everything that they have posted so far also has been public.
Like, well, I guess they're trying to like draw people in.
Yes, they're trying to draw people in and everything. And I understand, like, you know, given it's Hickman way, he's trying to go into this really wild direction with so many different, like, you know, he's all on his team. He also have Al Ewing, Ram V, and Timmy Howard.
Yeah.
So they're
it's
also
hardcore.
doing, and then Mike Huddleston and Del Mondo. So, like, you know, so he has like the 5 people plus him. And then he also said that he had hired another designer who's going to be creating the best looking books out of this that comics have ever seen.
Which might be true. I mean, Hickman's aesthetics are of the few things that I find unassailable. The man knows his aesthetics.
And then also on this Saturday, he's going to be interviewing Grant Morrison. And
are you going to tune in for that?
I don't understand what Morrison says because of the accent. So
I just thought you because they are how they are, but no, you should because of the accent.
Because of the accent. But you know, but the thing is like I do want to though, and you know, it was very interesting to see because there's like questions and everything opened up to people. So I'm gonna keep you posted on where these things go. You know, just how like, you know, keep you updated on where, because like, here's the thing, it's been a month. We haven't seen a comic yet. There was like a few pages, but those are also public.
Yep.
So
if it wasn't public, if it was just direct to you with a saying, "Hi, my darling Fariha," because we know that you're going to marry Hickman eventually, would it have been worth whatever $12 into $250, 20, however many dollars for this month?
A month.
For this month, I don't think so.
So he's got to make up.
But there's a promise, right?
Right,
there's a promise of special things when the book is done.
Correct. So the thing is, like, here's the thing: there's gonna be goodies and stuff like that, which, frankly, I don't care. You know, goodies, whatever.
Yeah.
Some people care about them. I don't care about them. But as of right now, I feel like I would have rather they have done all of this, then took people's money, and then they started. You know,
I think it should have been more Netflixy model where it was like, and here's the first trade of this book. But it seems like this has been pretty fast moving thing. Like, it doesn't seem like it started from before this year. It seems like they were offered these grants. There's been a lot of speculation that these startup grants that Substack has been giving out is anywhere between, $150,000 and $500,000 per creator. There's no actual substantiation of that, but I've seen a lot of people speculate, and they all tend to be in that range, especially in the $200,000 or $100,000 range. So it's like, even if you got $300,000 in March, and even if you gave that all to your artist and you already had a script in the can, that comic's going to take 4 or 5 months to exist. That's just how long it's going to take.
But the thing is that there has been information on like how the world works and stuff, which which each of them, like Ewing is part of, he's like I think the science expert. Ram V is the religion expert, and Tini Howard is the magical expert. And they have actually posted some stuff out of it. But to me, all of this feels like this should have happened before you took people's money, and here's also another thing, because I was like, okay, how many people signed up, right? So they were like, oh, the first 500 people sign up will get this, like the first 100 people sign up will get this. And people got mad that they didn't get into that, because everybody was under the impression, 500, how many people will sign up? Guess what? More than 500
that
people
probably
signed
happened
up.
in 20 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Like, because people were saying like, I signed up after a day, like, and I didn't get that email. So, so this is how many people signed up. And this is just me talking from the Hickman world. I don't know about Zadarsky world.
Nice to get in on it.
Yeah.
Well,
so
let me put something on top of that and then hand it over to Tyler and Harry. From Substack's perspective, some people might just think they want to make back that money, right? And they could make back that money, and they probably have an equation that they're looking for over the year to make that money back. Mm-hmm. But when you're in this venture capital backed tech space, there is cash burn. Like, that's a known quantity. To them, this is just $3 million that they burned in cash, and you have to ask why. And the why behind this cash burn is absolutely subscriber growth. That is what drives companies like this. That is what drives their valuation. And we know this from following things like Twitter and Facebook, but it's true even of smaller companies that are only valued at $10 million or $20 million, which I've worked with. They're all looking for that economic driver of their service, which is almost always number of subscriptions. It's almost always amount of activity, like what's their daily actives, because they want people that are addicted, right? And it almost always is that hockey sticking growth. They want their growth of these things to start to look like it's becoming exponential. So the bet that they've made here is not that they're necessarily going to make the $200,000 back from Hickman, although I am absolutely sure they will. The bet that they're making is that he will bring in subscribers faster than some other person that they could give $200,000. And so I think that speaks to Fariha's experience. Like, they bet right. I'm sure he got a certain amount of subscribers in the first week. Tiny had mentioned that he had a, quote, very modest goal for subscribers in his first week that he blew past, I think, in the first 48 hours. And I kind of mathed it out. I think he was maybe looking in the low thousands, maybe looking at the sales of his book, certainly not more than 5,000, I don't think. And I think he absolutely got that in the first 48 hours because he said that he did. So for them, they know that they're set if they can pull in a certain amount of subscribers to Substack, because that's what Substack wants. And Substack takes a percentage of that subscription fee. They make 3, 4, 5 times what they would typically make on a regular comic. They can give a living wage to all their people. And who loses? Possibly the fans, because you've got to pay for each one of these things individually. But let's go over to Harry and Tyler, who I take it have not signed up for anybody's Substacks. And what are you thinking about this? And then we'll transition into Hickman's imminent departure from the X-Men line from that.
I mean, I have not, because
Tyler?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure of the model. I'm not sure of the sustainability of the way that they are doing it. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I'm kind of risk averse, and I don't want to put $250 down. I did think about it, like when I first got the information. I was like, okay, why don't we try it? If I'm going to cut down my comic subscription, $20 a month is kind of there.
Yeah. But
I was thinking, but what if 3 months down the road, Hickman announced that he's no longer doing it? Do I get a refund of my $200?
Yeah, and
Right.
Hickman, of all the
he's
people to be
been
the
doing it.
start of this, he has not got the best track record.
No.
Tynion, at least, is a relentless deliverer year after year.
Yeah.
Hickman, I don't know if I trust him on his own without an editor. I really don't.
So that's one of the reasons he has 3 lackeys for him. He actually said it. He said it. He said
Well, I mean,
it.
C.D. Howard made him way better on X of Swords, so I can believe.
Yeah.
And Ram V is a freaking
Like,
genius.
he
So
already said it. But here's my problem though, because what Tyler was talking about, sustainability and all of that. But my thing is, if the whole after a year, I only got 1 image arc worth of story, that's absolutely not worth it. I'm not gonna pay another. I'm definitely not gonna pay another $250 because
but even
my mom
another
is gonna pay
$80
Yeah,
for
even
one
another
arc.
Yeah, from 1 arc, I'm not gonna do that. And like I said, I don't care for the trinkets and everything. And if my mom didn't bankroll this, I would have never signed up, no matter how much I care about this.
Mhm.
And if
So-
this is also going to be in the physical format,
Which they say they will. The Substack has no
Yeah.
print rights
Yeah.
whatsoever. They can print it through Image, Dark Horse, whoever they want. Much like how Comixology has been doing Afterlift, Zdarsky's book for
Mhm.
Comixology. It was great. Go read it if you have Comixology
Yeah.
Unlimited. Came out in physical format
Yeah.
last month from Dark Horse.
So
Yeah, so-
I guess that's where I land with all this because from a economic and industry standpoint, this is all very interesting. There's this huge new presence that has yanked ongoing narratives and creators and all that from where they were. So that in itself is interesting. But at the end of the day, and this is just my own prior, bias and disinterest in things and kind of being fed up with subscriptions anyway. If someone
Yeah.
asks me, hey, can you pay this amount of money every month for this one writer who,
Right.
by the way, has not made a comic yet? Like for me, sitting here hearing all this, I am not interested in it at all. And really, frankly, I've been busy, as have we all. So I've seen it happening. I know the ramifications of the X line, but I haven't. But as for the Substack books, I've been like, well, I don't know, but maybe Fariha will tell me and I'll get caught up.
Mhm.
And now that I've gotten caught up, I'm still not interested. If the books come out and shake the ground, I might wait for print. That's as far as I'm going. It's just my mental bandwidth for these kind of things is pretty maxed out anyway, which is just speaking for me. So like, I just don't care. I don't.
Yeah, that's.
And I also don't.
Go ahead, Brit.
Here's the thing, though. No, here's the thing, though. If it was $250 for everyone,
Sure.
would your thought have changed?
No, but like I think it would make more sense. I mean, I just don't want to. I don't know.
Okay, not $250, but a different number.
Maybe,
But
yes.
If there was
If it
like
was
an
for
unlimited,
everyone.
basically.
Yeah.
I
your
would
thought have
be,
changed?
yes, I would be more interested. But like, frankly, all I've heard so far is a bunch of one writer who I really like and a bunch of writers who I like are making another book. And okay, like that's cool. I like, let me know how they are and I might pick one up, so that's kind of where I'm landing on this. Like Tinian makes a lot of books. Lemire makes a lot of books. Al Ewing V make a lot of books. So like, I don't feel compelled to go out of my way for this new model, especially, and I know this is probably totally unfair considering I just talked about how I like reading things on my iPad, but like my mental shift to reading on my laptop or something like that, it just, there's a block there. I'm not interested right now. So, yeah, man, let me know how the books are. They're good. I'd love to buy
I want
them.
to go off of that point too, because I think there's a certain mental load aspect that maybe is being underestimated in terms of people who are big comic readers, as the 4 of us are and a lot of our friends are, because we're from a group of people with massive collections like our collections, which is that for me, so I go through Diamond, or at least when I'm reading, I go through the Diamond previews and I pick out every book that sounds even vaguely interesting and I chase them all down on Comixology. I do not read physical. And if you're not on Comixology, immediately it takes me months to get to you. And there are a lot of publishers that are very legitimate Diamond publishers that just don't use Comixology. So Scout Comics don't use Comixology. They finally started offering digital at the end of last year. And I'd been asking them like clockwork every 6 months. I went on Twitter. I said, do you have digital yet? Do you have digital yet? Because they have a lot of really cool looking books. And so they finally had digital. And let me tell you, I went on their website. I put every comic pretty much they'd ever published in my cart and I bought it because I like to support comic publishers and I like to put my money where my mouth is. So I gave them a few $100 and bought all their books. And I still haven't read all of them, but like I finally got to read it all. But then every month I have to remember, oh, right, I can't get that on Comixology. I've got to go to the Scout website. It's going to be a PDF. I have to save it somewhere on my computer. It's just extra mental load for somebody who's got a pull list, right? The same was even for DC. Even though DC's on Comixology, I can't get it off the preview site now. So now I've got to have like this extra process where I look at the preview site and then I look at DC site or League of Extraordinary Geeks or something to get the DC books, and it's mental load. And I think that like that's kind of why I dropped my pull list, not because I was like hating all my comics, but I just was like done with the mental load of trying to keep. I'm just like, just give them to me. It's the same thing as like when all the streaming networks started splintering and you couldn't watch everything on Netflix. I actually just stopped watching things. I'm like, I just want it to be easy. I should not have to do homework to consume entertainment. And so the way I feel with the Substack, do you know how many people of these people I've subscribed to their newsletters already? I mean, I do that because I like to support people, and I know newsletter lists are important. I can't tell you the last time I read one of their newsletters. Like a Gillen's. I sometimes read Gillen's because it's
Gillen's
funny sometimes.
his are always. I mean,
and he's not on Substack. Yes,
Gillen just has a newsletter that I read every occasionally. That's not part of Substack though, right?
No, but I'm saying I don't even read their existing newsletters. So why would I want to pay $8 a month for this comic that I can't even remember if it's coming out or not? There's no schedule. I don't even know what the comic is. There's no previews or anything, which I know Hickman's like, we're breaking free from the bounds of having to write previews text. But like, at least Tynion like really explained, I think, the whole concept of his first book really well. Hickman was just like, hand wave, there's 3 moons. So that's kind of where
I'm
like,
that got explained.
Oh, did it? Yeah, in some subsequent newsletter.
But also,
like,
Hickman,
it got explained. It all like there's like now it's like too many texts.
But anyway, just to kind of put a cap, my thesis statement and all that. If you're asking me to do a lot of homework, and there's a lot of comic creators who I like truly love and would pay individually to support, but I know from newsletters, I know from Patreon, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to pay them the money and forget about it. So given the model, I would rather just wait 12 months, see if they actually follow through on their shit. And if they do, 12 months from now, I'll pay $8 and read a year's worth of shit.
And I think maybe we should pay a little bit more attention to the fact of, will they follow through? Because like for my money, like, I love Hickman. Like I love the stuff he's done. I loved his Avengers run. I loved East of West. To my knowledge, someone correct me. Are there any other series that he has finished since those 2 series?
Decorum. Manhattan Project's
finished, and then they tried to do more.
Yeah.
Well, no. They were decided they might do more, and then that kind of fizzled. But it did.
Yes,
complete.
It finished. If you read it, issue 25 is the end. I have read every single Hickman issue, so you cannot tell me it's finished.
But then they had those quarterly issues that just never got continued.
No, because those are one story. Those are one story that happens in that world. I read those stories. It's one story that happened in the world, and I asked him that. Okay, but I asked him that face to face, E2E2. Why aren't you continuing? He's like, it didn't sell, so I'm not.
I was there,
it.
and but like that's not.
I introduced you to Hickman. I was right there.
But that book was not like an ending. It just wasn't like we don't have to litigate Manhattan Projects. But like that last like Space Dog like one.
Yeah, it was just one.
That's not an ending to that series. But the greater point, I actually don't know if that's recorded.
Yeah, that's a side story.
Okay,
sure. But as opposed to Tynion, who did his The Woods in full, right? Did his little trio of viral stuff, cogenic, mememic, and eugenic, I think they're called. Yeah. Seriously friggin' creepy if you like that kind of stuff. Tynion, shipped flawlessly the first year of Something is Killing the Children, had a complete story, and then extended it because the book is doing well. Like I kind of tried. I'm sorry to keep bringing it away from Hickman, but like we know I have my ups and downs with Hickman, but I feel like Harry does. I'm like, I will not believe it until it's like multiple completed arcs and people confirm that it's a story and it's not just space masturbation. Yeah. And
I thought was a completely solid bet that wouldn't get messed with was the current X-Men comics.
Well, let's transition into that, shall we?
Oh, no, before we transition, one person you should definitely subscribe and you'll get your money's worth, Jeff Lemire. He will probably do 80 different series and be done with it.
That's actually a good point.
Be done with it within a year.
Yeah, because he writes on this group that has the track record of shipping shit that finishes.
Yes,
it is absolutely Jeff Lemire.
So if you're worried about that, like, okay, which one?
If you like hockey, dads, sons of dads,
small towns
where they play hockey.
Ice Cap, Tim Hortons, Canada
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah, then subscribe.
That's
All right.
yeah, like Lemire.
So-
Yes.
So
we got the
yes.
rug yanked from under us.
all four of us are out there on the internet being like, Hickman's not gonna leave. Cool your jets. Marvel would make a bigger deal about marketing it if Hickman would leave. But here's the thing. They were probably embargoed by Hickman himself to not blow the wad of him leaving until the Substack stuff came out. And then they wanted to leave time for that news cycle to finish. And pretty much as soon as that 2-week news cycle of the Substack stuff started to wrap up, then we got the announcement. So it kind of was like fait accompli, and it was always going to happen. And we all were wrong about Hickman not leaving. And so Inferno is in fact his last hurrah on the X-Men. And are we a little bit frozen? Are we a little bit frozen? Because I'm just talking. We're frozen. Hickman's leaving us. It's over.
You are a little bit frozen.
Tyler, how are you?
No, I'm okay.
All right, Tyler, I think me, Fariha, Jesus.
Yeah.
We're all
Hickman
okay.
broke our heart.
Peter, can you hear us?
Peter.
I can hear you.
It's a bit broken.
We're all out there saying, like, don't get your panties in a bunch. Marvel would say if Hickman was leaving, and it turns out that it was all just timing. They probably were embargoed by Hickman to not talk about it until the Substack thing came out. They wanted to wait for the Substack news cycle to complete before they said anything, and it did. And then they announced that Inferno is going to be the end, and not the end of this current X-Men run, not the end of Age of Krakoa, but the end of Hickman working on this X-Men stuff. And he said it out loud pretty much in the Substack announcement to say, it turns out that the status quo he created didn't need to move on from Act 1. And a lot of people have a lot of feelings about this. Personally, I agree. I don't think we need the fall of the smart men. I think Hickman has made up the most brilliant thing that's ever been made up in the history of X-Men. And he is right to leave because we don't need him. He already gave us the thing that we wanted. So I actually am feeling sort of optimistic, but that's me who's kind of felt this way all along. Tyler, do you feel cheated that we're not going to get the Act 2 and the Act 3 that they talked about 2 years ago?
Well, I mean, I feel more cheated by the dilution of his ideas that happened not so much in Docs, but in the first portion of Rocks. And so that's one thing which I kind of was a little bit disappointed with. And the other thing is I don't know. I don't trust some of the creators that
and editors are.
Yes. And I have a lot to say. I mean, not a lot, but I've been talking about that for a while.
Yes,
and the couple of books that came out recently really, really suffered when something obviously shouldn't be happened. And I'm like, why? You are the editor. You know exactly what this group of people can do and how the whole resurrection process works. And yet, this is printed. This is wrong. It's outright wrong.
What are you talking about? I just want
to. I'm talking about Hope using the cerebral helmet.
Right.
I mean, Hope can use the cerebral helmet. She can imitate anybody's powers.
But there's
right?
no telepath nearby.
Well, I mean, she might have just bopped up to the moon and crept up over Jean's bed while she was sleeping with all of her male lovers and absorbed it and just bopped right. You don't know.
Yeah,
you don't know.
Yeah, I get your
no, but I take your point. It was a really cool image, and it was drawn really well. I almost took a screenshot just to send to Freya because it was in New Mutants, right?
Yes.
It was Rice, and I was almost like, Freya, this is hot. It looks so good. You have to go read it. But
it looks really good. I was like,
it just the image, not hot, like sexy hot, but just like it was a really, really good page.
I know.
Yeah.
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 It's hot.
It just was it was that good. Don't tease me. I was thinking about how much I love you and how much I want you to see good comic pages, Fariha.
Fariha, stop being a jerk.
I'm just laughing at the
Fariha.
Hey, I'm just laughing at the fact that I never expected Peter to say it's a hot Fariha. Go see it. I just never expected Peter to say that. That's why I'm
Only about me more.
Understandable.
That's usually the
Yeah.
only context in which I would say that.
No, but then the other thing that like that really kind of upsets me is that the worst book is getting that highlight, that single weekly shit, like
Kill me.
to propel
Mhm.
the whole X era into the the X-Men books into the next era. I'm like,
I view this.
Why?
I view
That's
this
just
as like a
yeah,
filler
that's
place.
like
I'm projecting or imagining. I'm thinking this is like a filler placeholder thing. I cannot imagine this is like their big announcement. But I've been wrong before. So I don't know.
but
Yeah.
that's the thing. That
And just to be clear, what we're
That-
talking about, they just a day ago in their big MCU style announcement announced
Yeah.
all the big books that are going to be starting in the next few months. They're all seemingly all events. And the
Mhm.
one in the Krakoa is like the deaths of Wolverine / the lives of Wolverine. And sadly, it
something
doesn't
like
seem
that.
like they mean Lara, who's actually
Yeah.
Wolverine. They mean some other, he's like Canadian, he's hairy.
Some
I
dude
don't
named Logan.
really know. But
Oh,
But-
yeah.
well, I mean,
it's
Get
but
him.
that's
Get his ass.
the thing is this: like, I'm not
A new
not-
person? I'm interested.
I'm not opposed to a Wolverine centric book.
I am.
I'm
but continue.
opposed to the current writer writing Wolverine
Oh, we know.
wrongly,
I'm with you,
and-
man.
only occasionally doing good work because of the artist on the book. That is my big problem. I'm
I love
trying
this is
not
just turning
to
into a
curse.
screw
I'm
Wolverine
trying
issue.
really hard not to use the F word.
I already
because
used our one
that
F word,
is
so standards. If you use another one, we have to go
Mother.
from PG-13
Yeah.
to R. It's a whole thing.
because that is a very New York thing to do. Because we describe everything, whether it's a good or bad, with that F word.
Yeah,
This
and
is
Philly
so,
is just John. This is John. Is,
Yeah.
John. Yeah.
you can't really
So-
use that as a verb. You can't say this John is John.
No, but that was a major disappointment for me, because it shows a couple of things. It shows that X Factor was cancelled, probably because
Stay
of the
on it.
support that Wolverine got. You know, the kind of people that reads the X book, that loves Wolverine, and causes, I wouldn't want to say a direct link, but that as opposed is more important than the people who actually supported X Factor.
I think
And
people
that
buy it,
message to me is that X-Men and maybe the current Marvel editors just, are just after money. And they don't really care about the X-Men message. They don't really care about the mutant message. They don't care. And as much as I kind of like try to rationalize this as a, Marvel is a company that makes money. It kind of dashes the hope of when the kind of hope that when the first roundtable X writers came on, we are getting a lot of diversity. We are getting a lot of female writers, non-straight
Right. A Wolverine
writers
event
on the-
series by Ben Percy doesn't
Yeah.
scream diverse writing room about diverse characters. In execution, who knows? But
Yeah.
it doesn't seem like it's keeping that promise, because that we don't need Hickman for that, right? Like if Hickman
No.
set that up, we should be
Yeah.
able to still enjoy all these characters,
So-
enjoy all these writers. But for the first thing out of the gate to be like machismo white man, centered.
That's such a bad sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Harry,
just
you've been
signal
waiting
to me-
patiently down there.
Yeah, and I'm not ashamed to say that, like, right after Inferno, I'm dropping all the floppies. I'm just going to wait 3 months for Marvel Unlimited.
That's what I'm doing
Wow.
right now. Mostly.
Fair enough.
Harry?
I'm probably with you. Yeah, I mean, this is a weirdly complicated situation, right? Like in terms of feelings and like how it. So I on one hand, it's a bummer. I don't think you can get around it. It's just a bummer that like this thing that's much promise now feels to be like a rudderless ship. I'm sure they're making plans. As Tower just said, these plans appear to be bullshit so far. I'm sorry if that messes with our ratings. But the thing, the
Our
important thing
ratings.
is, yeah, right. The important thing is like, they did the reasoning being that we want to stay in Act 1, which is this bold, exciting new world that
Mhm.
we all love, that people all love. that we want to stay there and not do the thing. And I'm trying to remember if I'm just like making up in my mind or if he said like a rise and fall story or if that was said. Okay,
Implied.
that was
I think it was
yes.
implied.
If that was
By
where we went this,
Hickman.
I'm trying to remember.
But
I think
I'll
Hickman
say
implied that.
I'll
We'll get
save
there.
it. I'll
We'll get
save
Yeah.
it.
So the point I'm making is like, you know, I don't want that story. I don't care if it's written by Hickman. I think that's really not, I think it's a little tired. I think the fun of this has been that they're not doing that. I think we've seen a rise and fall story he's done very well in Avengers, which was like the ultimate nihilist thing. So I don't need to, like you actually have like this thing of vibrancy and life that you've created. If you want to stay here, that's cool. But do I have faith in these creators? Maybe a little more than Tyler, but I would say I'm very worried. And I do wonder what this will be like without a cohesive, a larger voice bringing this all together, unless they're thinking of somebody new. But at the same time, there is like 35% of me is excited at the possibility of, now that we're staying here, what's the plan with this writers room you've created? I think on average, this might be a good thing. It's just, there's so many caveats to it. I can't be like fully enthusiastic. And I'm with you, Tyler. I might buy a few still, but I'm not going to be buying Wolverine anymore. I'm fine with that. You know?
All right, Fariha.
Okay, Fariha. Yeah, sorry.
From my point of view, I already said before that when Hickman leaves, I'll leave X-Men with it. And, you know, to be honest, I'll be honest, I really didn't want to say that or want to do that, but I have come to X-Men with Hickman as a guest. You know, I read some X-Men before that. I genuinely do not like this IP. You know, as a person of color, as a woman of color,
Come a long
it's
way.
insulting. It's insulting. And I read Claremont. I found it insulting. I read all the middle parts with the Gillen fraction and all of that. I found that to be horrifying and just like you'd say. And now Hickman, when this whole new status quo happened, I was like, yes, this is it. This is what, talk about metaphor. This is what all the things that you need to do. And then it was just doing pretty much the same thing again and again. And I was sticking to it because I was thinking that, okay, there's an end game. There is like Hickman has an arc, an act and all of that. However, now he's gone and it's left with people who writes Wolverine, who has attached two women with rape stories in their life. One of them had the audacity to say, best ideas win in Krakoa. And it was the same man who wrote that. Then there was the whole issue with current X-Men face are all white people, one Japanese and one Black man. No women of color. You know, that's current X-Men. This is the metaphor. There's no difference between this. No, you know what? What am I saying? There is a difference that before, when it first started, there was only one white woman and then rest white men. So it's changed a little bit. So now to me, it's like, who are these stories for? Who are these stories being told to? Who are these, like, it's like to what Tyler was saying, that is it like for the people who just like Wolverine's story? That's not a metaphor story. That's not minor. That teaches nothing. What is that being told about? And I think talking to all the people in our comment section, I'm realizing, I was actually very much pro mutant stories and all of that. I'm realizing we don't need them anymore. We can tell the minority stories without X-Men, without mutants, and without all of that. So to me, I'm actually in support of Fall of X-Men if it means they will be gone forever, just the way Fantastic Four did after Secret Wars. If that was the case, I was all for it. But it was like, just another fall that, they're going to be crying somewhere because that's all they're good for. And apparently that's what all you X-Men fan likes. I wasn't interested for that. So I don't know, after seeing all of this, I think after the whole nonsense, and apparently X Factor 10 was rewritten.
I was about to get into that.
Like, you know, that I'm like, okay, first of all, if it's true, what? Really? With this D-list characters? We all love X Factor here, but these are D-list characters.
Yes, somebody actually had to go and
Marvel
interfere
editor?
of all the, it's not Spider-Man. Like, just let Leah do whatever crazy shit Leah Williams wants to do. Well,
And if it's not true, what a weird lie to tell. So
it's
therefore,
not a lie. There's no way.
No, I know.
For those of you who don't know what we're referring to, our amazing and incredibly supportive colleagues at Battle of the Atom interviewed Leah Williams on their podcast, and she talked very frankly about all the highs, the very high highs of writing for X-Men, and also the lows being some of the reaction to X Factor 10. She confirmed everything that we've all surmised, that X Factor was originally not going to end at 10. It was going to keep running. Her pitch for what became the trial of Magneto was just going to be a later arc, maybe not even starting until issue 15 or 16. So we were going to have a lot more runway to resolve all of that Shatterstar, Morgan, every stuff, for better or for worse. And that ultimately she did find out about having to close down issue 10 while scripting 9, but that issue 10 that we got had some things in it that she did not write. Some of the way that Prodigy's body was displayed, which we had quite a lengthy discussion about on our channel, was not as she scripted it. And some other things too were not as she scripted. And she didn't come right out and say, XYZ editor changed my thing, but she just said, just so you know, I did not write some of that. That is what we were.
That's what I'm saying. So that's what I'm saying. So after taking all of that, I'm like, you know what? And I don't want to get political, but you know what? It's like I feel like X-Men is for people who thinks that they have read, wrote, or written. I don't know. It's a horrible thing to say, but I'm gonna say it. And this is because this is what I've always felt about X-Men, and it have now confirmed for me that it's written for people who don't read minority written books or minority character books, and they're just gonna be read that, and they're gonna think, yeah, that white boy Scott Summer, he's oppressed, therefore I'm oppressed, and therefore this is what minority feels. We don't feel that way. We don't. This is not our stories. This is not our story. We don't need you. We don't need mutants anymore. We don't need X-Men anymore. We can write our story on our own. Like G. Will Wilson did it for Kamala. There is like other hundreds and thousands of other stories that are out there. Shang-Chi's coming out tomorrow or today, and I'm super excited.
Today.
Like, today, tomorrow. There's Black Panther. I don't need X-Men. I'm sorry, I don't. And you know what? You all can keep it. You all can read it, and I'm gonna be okay.
So 2 years ago, as we were doing our Hickman report on Fariha's channel at the time, Fariha and I in this channel did 20 questions for an expert and a new mutant, where we asked each other stuff to try to get Fariha caught up on X-Men because she was excited because Hickman was coming and she hadn't really read anything other than Mars and Whedon at that time. And so the idea was that I was going to like indoctrinate. Fariha was kind of a joke. I mean, we're just two friends who just kind of put on a little bit of a show for YouTube.
It was fun. It was very much fun.
But you have to understand that Fariha and I sometimes are doing a little bit of character work here for you. That's not the actual conversation that would be occurring between Fariha and I. And the same is true for Harry and for Tyler as well. And so I think there was this thought that I was going to indoctrinate Fariha into being an X-Men fan. The actual thing that happened in the past 2 years instead is that I got indoctrinated to seeing the X-Men through Fariha's eyes. And I actually agree with every single word that Fariha just said. Why does this property exist? Why are we reading it? Why are any white men writing it? It's an utter comedy to me. And the hope that I had for this whole Hickman era was that like Hickman recognized the inherent conflict, the inherent comedy of that, and that instead of trying to make it this belabored, tired 60-year-old minority metaphor, that he was going to write something that was so uniquely X-Men and about them that you didn't need to say, oh, it's about Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. Oh, it's about, the queer experience. It's just about these X-Men who are different. But it also encompasses all those things. It's going to be about the mutant experience and talk about race. It's going to be about the mutant experience and talking about being queer. And that's what intersectionality is, right? It's stacks of all of your identities and how they interact and all of the different diversity that everybody brings to the table. And I thought that that's what it was going to be in the writing room. And I thought that that's what it was going to be also in the books. And I think starting from X Factor 10, rolling through Marauders number 22 and looking at this Wolverine stuff on the horizon, it's not that. I mean, we're just going to revert back to, like Fariha said, this white team of X-Men and Wolverine slicing shit up. And honestly, all those people that Fariha named and more are showing that comics can be more than that. You know, G. Willow Wilson, not only on Miss Marvel, but if you haven't been reading The Dreaming from her, wrote an amazing trans representation on page that a lot of trans readers and critics were really positive on. And G. Willow Wilson did the friggin' work to make that work on the page. You have Ram V with The Many Deaths of Layla Starr, which is one of the best comics that anybody has read since his last best comic that everybody's read, which was These Savage Shores. We have, you know, Ta-Nehisi Coates basically told two big stories about America and that he wanted to tell in Black Panther, even though it's not set in America, he was still clearly commenting on some of it, and Captain America, and then walked away. Like, we know comics can stand up to this level of scrutiny and this level of showing us intersectionality, both of the writers' identities and the characters' identities in the page. And X-Men has fallen on its face on that regard. So why should I keep reading it? It's just not good. It's not interesting. I think we've got 60 years of great stories, and maybe it should just end with Inferno.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I was actually thinking, that, you know, when he said the fall of X, I thought that was his idea, that I'm going to shove them, like, you know, delete them off existence. And I'm like, yes, let's do this. But no, because you know what? MCU is coming up with X-Men. So I want synergy.
I want to say two more things to add to that, and then we'll go around one more time, then we're done. I know I said that I was interested in staying in this Act 1. So I don't want to make it seem like I'm conflicting with what I said. I would love to stay in this Act 1 and see it be really representative, intersectional, do all these things. But I think after seeing what happened with X Factor 10 and Marauders 22, you can make the argument that there's been some changes in the editors and people have moved around, and some of the editors on those comics have already left. But you still have Duggan writing X-Men, and I'm really uncomfortable reading more comics by Duggan after Marauders 22. I just am. I can't fix it or help it or change it. I just don't know if I want to read any more words that the guy wrote. I can't do anything about that. And also, Jordan T. White is still the editor. And I thought he's been a terrible editor for X-Men from the beginning. We blocked each other on Twitter the day that Powers of X6 came out over a little dispute. And that's just been the end of our relationship. So I don't know that there's anybody I trust writing these books. And so it's not that that I'm conflicting against my own opinion, saying I want X-Men to end, but I also want to stay in this Act 1. I want to stay in this Act 1 and get the thing that the line started to promise me, is what I'm saying. Yep. And then the other thing I said at the very beginning was, I try not to cut off my nose to spite my face, because I'm Italian and I'm from South Philly and I know that I'm prone to that. I'm not saying I'm never going to read an X-Men comic book again. I'm not saying the X-Men are never going to be entertaining again. I'm saying the amount of attention and the amount of hope that I ascribed to the things that I thought it could accomplish, that for the moment has ended. And I would, given the chance between sitting down and having all those X-Men books being on my top of poll, or having a bunch of other things being top of poll, I would have the other things. But here's the thing. Some of those other things are people like Tynion, who are other queer creators, creators of color, creators who are bringing those different kind of intersectionality to comics. And a lot of that just got effing hoovered up by Substack. So I kind of just feel like a man without a country right now, a person without a country. And I really don't know where to go. So I don't know what my poll list is going to look like a week from now or a month from now. But now that
there will be new people coming up. I'm saying there will be new people coming up. Like, you know, Marvel will pay, if Marvel and DC is not willing to pay high money, they're going to bring new people up, and they're going to be taken up by Substack. And then it's just going to be round and round and circle, and Substack will fold in a year. It's okay.
So that was kind of, I feel like that was kind of my thesis statement. It's kind of like, and I want to be clear that we really did have scheduling concerns. I did have a point where I'm like, I don't know if I want to keep reading these comics, but that was before we did our last couple of episodes. And then we legitimately had scheduling concerns. Yeah. So I kind of just got to say my final piece. And I feel like Fariha gave a wonderful summation, although if she wants to talk more, she can. I want to give Tyler and Harry a point to kind of give their final piece and say, we don't really know if we're going to be back or not, but we'll talk a little bit about that after Harry and Tyler say their piece. So go ahead, Tyler, and then Harry, and then if Fariha wants to say anything she can, then I'll close this out. So Tyler.
I've been a pretty long time X-Men reader. I will still read it, but I have a Marvel Unlimited subscription, and it's 3 months less
than Substack every month.
Yeah, and it's 3 months late. I would read it, but I kind of want to end on a positive X note, and that is I really enjoy Howling's 15. I think it does all the things that a good book should do. It has single arcs in the beginning, and then everything basically just converge into this bigger storyline that he's trying to end, I think, the book on. And it is really, really entertaining. And I mean, I have to say, like, the past month, Hellions is actually the best book so far. So yeah, I mean, if there's only one book that you want to, one X book that you want to read, I suggest Hellions 15, because it is really, really entertaining. And I feel like I think the fact that Hellions was kind of like its own thing for by itself among the X books helped a lot. But I think this is good. And the other thing that I really, really enjoy, which I did not think I would because I don't recognize the writer, is The Last Annihilation, Wiccan and Hawkling. Which I thought was
it's
really...
by what is his name? I'm obsessed with him.
Olive Anthony.
Yeah, Anthony Oliveira. He's brilliant.
That's great. I just
talking about the kind of voices I want to see writing X-Men.
And I love there's still little minis for each event. Is that they're still popping up? I love that.
Yeah, and it's really, really entertaining, and and who doesn't love a good gay story,
gay space romance? We're all
good gay space romance.
Yeah.
Harry.
I with this new iPad, I've been reading a lot.
Sponsored by Apple, everybody.
Yeah, sponsored by Apple. Get your iPad. I just got a friggin' tablet. Damn it. No, I've been reading so many comics. Like,
really? More than you were already?
Yes. Oh, for sure. I've been reading like one new series like a day and a half.
Wow.
Like I have been, and just all across the spectrum, DC, whatever. And like a lot of them have been okay. A lot of them have been great. A lot of them have been bad. Like whatever. I'm just trying to. And, it's just reminding me, like it's getting my skill to remind me that so many of the X-Books right now, for whatever reason, they are, in my mind, fairly mediocre. I think there's a few glimmers of excellence. I think Hellions was great. I'm with you, Tyler. I think it was great. I think The Last Wave of X was fantastic. And I like New Mutants. But beyond that, it's really tough to like keep finding ways to talk about these boring books. And I think we've all struggled with that one way or the other. And, at the end of the day, I am not going to commit myself to these boring books when I have so much limited time and so many other great books that I can read. Now, hope springs eternal. These things are cyclical. It's possible there's be a new talent, a new stat, a new direction, a new focus that's right around the corner. And, I'll be energized again. And that would be great. But like right now, it's just so much uncertainty, and frankly, the voices that are existing right now, Duggan mainly, just gives me, 0.0 confidence. Duggan and Percy are not the voices I want to see taking the lead in this line.
You went from 35% to 0.
Oh, did I? Whatever. So there you go.
Yeah, 35% of the battery
the
levels are
35%. I know. Well,
life support is failing.
I'm not a math man. But like,
he's just
the
a
point
Florida.
I just want to point out.
Not a math man. He's a Florida.
I'm glad that I like that you're paying attention though. You're like, hey, wait a minute, those numbers don't add. The point being, I am hopeful. The 35% to retcon that is the possibility of there being new exciting writers. Right now, I'm just a little underwhelmed, and just give the friggin' line to like a sentient box of skim milk. They'll do a better job than what Duggan and Percy are doing with the same flavor. That was mean.
Wow.
That's
I don't know.
true.
Harry got the worst burn of the episode in.
I'm just annoyed that what have I enjoyed the most? X Factor, Way of X. X Factor got axed. I'm not totally loving Trial of Magneto so far. Way of X got, there's some like special, but like, who knows what's after? They say there will be more. I don't believe them anymore. I don't believe any of this. Like, they're clearly so in flux that like I'm not taking anything to say as gospel. So I want to read good comics. I don't want to get pissed off at comics. I don't want to see comics doing clumsy like abuse stories for no friggin' reason, being written by people that have no business doing it. I'm hoping that this is a chance for a refresh and a reorientation of these books with the things that we've talked about, with more diverse voices, with more faithful depictions of these issues that don't feel like cheap wannabe trying or whatever. So I'm holding out hope. But yeah, that 35% is dipping fast, as Fariha could tell. So,
Fariha, is there anything else you want to add to your mutant manifesto that we just heard from you a few minutes ago?
Oh, I will continue to read Al Ewing stuff.
Sure. Oh, right.
Guardians of the Galaxy, and I think it's moving on with Sword and whatever other stuff. I'll read that. I'll read Hellions because Tyler just said it, and it's ending in December because the oversized hardcover got canceled and it's going resolicited. And then Way of X, I'm going to finish that, but otherwise I cannot do any more X-Men start and stop again. I am not doing that. This is not me cutting my nose or any of that. I've done Claremont, I've done the whole middle part, and I did this. No thanks. I'm good with X-Men. I'm just gonna go and read my diverse characters and diverse writers and all of that elsewhere. Thank you very much.
Well, and I just want to close out in a couple of points. That doesn't mean to say that we are definitely not going to talk about Inferno. We have a certain amount of morbid curiosity about what Hickman's parting shot is actually going to be. So that is still up in the air.
And it's Mystique, my girl.
And it's Mystique, which we've been waiting, and it was maybe going to happen in the gala, and then nothing happened, and we're still waiting. So there's that. The other thing is we really would do this anyway. And so we're giving a lot of thought to what it might look like to have a weekly show from us that's not about X-Men. It might look a lot like this episode. So it's kind of like we've got a whole new pilot episode about a year after we had our original pilot episode. So it might be that we just kind of shoot the breeze, and then we talk a little bit about comics industry stuff. And then we talk about other comics that we're clearly all still reading. As I regenerate my pull list, as Harry has his new iPod, that's from Apple. And as Tyler and Fariha enjoy other things as well. And so that, if that sounds interesting to you, reach out to us in some way and let us know. We would probably have the conversation anyway, but whether or not we got all pretty and do it on video and on audio, that's a different story. And I just, I have my list of all the comics. I've read over 2,000 issues already this year. And looking at the stuff in my top list, I already mentioned The Dreaming, The Waking Hours, which you don't have to have read Sperrier's The Dreaming. You could, but Dreaming, The Waking Hours is its own thing. It's brilliant. It's so, I haven't even read all of Sandman yet, much to Fariha's continued horror and disgust. And I still think it was one of the best of the year. The Picture of Everything Else, which is a queer romance murder mystery in turn of the century Paris, another one of my favorite books of the year. The Other History of the DC Universe, which recently wrapped up, written by John Ridley, looking at the DC Universe through kind of a realism tinged eyes of non-white characters in the universe. Shadow Doctor, which is a true story from Aftershock Comics about a Black doctor who could not get a job in a white hospital in Chicago, and so became the doctor to Al Capone and the mob. This is the writer's grandfather. It's a true story. It is amazing. Philadelphia, about the town we spent talking the opening about, which is all about vampires in Philadelphia, but also how they connect to Philadelphia's historical position as the birthplace of America, and how that connects to the oppression and slavery that has been put upon Black people, and how the horrors of history line up with the horrors of vampirism. These are my favorite books of the year, and they have something in common, and it's that thing that I thought the X-Men line was going to have. So this is actually a very consistent position, I think, for me to take, because I just read, and of course, Batman at the top, written by James Tynion, but that only has a brief shelf life. Anyway, so this is the kind of conversation we could be having. If you're interested in hearing about it, we'd love to hear from you about that. If not, we probably are going to have it anyway. We miss you all so much. We love your comments. We love getting to talk to you. But I think, as you can hear from us here, we might be done talking to you about X-Men for a little while. So something I've really wanted to be able to say is, on the behalf of myself, Harry, Tyler, and Fariha, I want to thank you so much for listening to Crushing Comics. And I want Fariha to give us possibly our last time in a while. Fariha, why do we read X-Men at all?
X-Men can be tolerable when you're talking with your friends.
That's right.
All right.
And that includes us, and that includes you. So until we get to talk to you again, whether it's next week or some time from now, please be well, please be safe out in the world, and we care about you very much. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.